Intimacy is the most important part of any feel-good, connected relationship. Intimacy can be broken down into me, see. But intimacy is much more than that. It's not just seeing into somebody, it's also feeling into somebody, listening into them, and becoming an expert on them to the degree that you completely understand them. It's to comprehend a person's internal world. Now, most of us, when we think about intimacy, we're just thinking about sex. Sex can be a byproduct of intimacy, but you can have intimacy without sex. Some people, many people, are terrified of intimacy. It's the basic number one thing that they avoid. There are several reasons for this. They may be terrified that intimacy is going to lead to something that feels bad. For example, we might be terrified that if we let someone really see the truth of us, they'll not tolerate it or accept it. If they know the truth of us, they may use it against us later. If they know our weaknesses and vulnerabilities, they can capitalize on them to our detriment, and conversely, for their own best interest. If they know what we really want, they can use that as leverage to control us. If they give us closeness, we may feel like we're obligated to make them happy in return, which is a kind of trapped indebtedness, so we've lost our freedom as a result. If they find out things about us, they might judge as bad or wrong, they might increase our shame, abandon or reject us. If we let them in, they might find a way to engulf us completely so we don't even have ourselves at all. We need to spend some time imagining being completely close to someone and having no distance between ourselves and the other person, so that they can see, feel, hear, and understand us and be permanently connected to us, and see what deep imprint of fear arises as a result. When a child is born, it is born with a natural need and compulsion to be close to, connected to, together with its parents. So what goes wrong in order for us to develop a fear of intimacy? It means that there was trauma that we experienced when we tried to get that closeness with someone. How a parent responds to being wanted and needed by a child, as well as how the parent uses this need for closeness for their own aims, dictates how safe closeness and intimacy is or isn't. If we have a fear of intimacy, our parents either dismissed our neediness of them and shamed us for it, and or used our neediness against us. The key feature in households that develop adults that have a fear of intimacy is that the child's emotions are responded to with an attitude of, I will not tolerate you. So it's not just about feelings, it's about, I'm not going to tolerate your truth. I won't tolerate your ideas, I'm not going to tolerate how you feel, I'm not going to tolerate your reality. In this type of a household, the way that a child feels, what they think, the things they want, is perceived by the parent as a challenge. Here's an example. Let's say that a little kid is getting ready for school in the morning and really starts to show signs of distress because they don't want to go to school. Now, in this type of a household, the kind that creates intimacy issues, when that child responds to going to school in a negative manner, their truth is, I don't want to go to school. What the parent's going to do is not tolerate that feeling, that perception. What they're going to do is turn against it. Now, this parent either dismisses it entirely, ignores it, or minimizes it. That's ridiculous. It's okay. Everything's fine. Or this parent is going to turn in opposition to it. And maybe they'll say something like, well, you have to go to school. It doesn't matter what you think. We all have to go to school. Your sisters and brothers had to go to school. This is just how it is. Come on, get ready. The message the child gets is that the way he or she feels, thinks, as well as what she or he wants or doesn't want is invalid, shameful, and is in direct conflict with the parent's feelings, thoughts, and desires. The message here is, you can't have you and have me too, because our truths conflict and I'm the adult, so you're wrong and bad. Instead of seeing how ridiculous this is, we decide that the parent must be right. And for the sake of ending the terror we feel to be in conflict with the parent that we're dependent on, who is the God of our reality, we try to disown our feelings, thoughts, and desires and idolize the parent because viewing them negatively overwhelms us with anxiety. Our own personal truth is swallowed by them in the same way that a prey animal is swallowed by a predator. And we allow this to happen. It is a strategy to try to keep ourselves safe from conflict and to keep ourselves from being abandoned. But we feel swallowed, we feel engulfed, and we lose ourselves. Another common form of intolerance for a child's emotions that leads to a fear of intimacy and then some interesting results in adulthood happens when the child expressing their thoughts or desires or emotions actually causes a collapse in the parent. Now, if the parent is addicted or has some other type of mental illness, or even is just going through a grief deep enough that they can't honestly, emotionally face the task of parenthood, then the child literally believes that if they impose any of themselves, the way they feel, the way they think, the things they want on their parent, it'll cause them to fall down, to die. So basically, that person will withhold all of the truth of themselves, how they feel, what they want, what they think, everything, so as to preserve the well-being of the parent. And they take this pattern on into their adult lives. This is so often the case in households where a parent is suicidal. The child learns to never share their negative feelings because if they do, it may push their parent over the edge and cause them to kill themselves. What we have to understand is that if in our childhood our need for our parents, as well as our feelings, desires, and thoughts, are not tolerated by our parents or by the people in our environment, we will develop a fear of intimacy. We will learn never to share the reality of who we are with anyone else. We don't let them in. We don't offer ourselves to them. Now that's bad enough because it means that you can't actually have a relationship or connection with anybody. But the most awful part of this pattern is, in order to live like that, we have to disconnect from our own personal truth as well. We have to separate ourselves off from the way that we feel, the way that we think, the desires that we have, and our needs for other people. Because we've already learned that they're not to be tolerated. What does this look like in your day-to-day life? You disconnect from your feelings so you don't have to feel them. You disconnect from your thoughts so you don't have to recognize those thoughts. You disconnect from your body so you don't have to feel it. You disconnect from desires and you go with the flow, or you isolate yourself. One thing we have to accept if this is our experience in life is that our heart is broken. It was broken a long, long time ago. And we haven't been able to heal it because we haven't found a way to resolve the deep, deep pain of never being seen, never being felt, never being heard, never being understood, and never being wanted. Closeness inevitably involves vulnerability. Now, obviously, vulnerability is the number one thing that you're trying to avoid if you have a fear of intimacy. Because what did we learn? It's not okay to have feelings. It's not okay to have desires based off of those feelings. And so we are looking to avoid anything that induces those feelings. And vulnerability is the one that induces the majority of those feelings for us. So we are literally in full-on avoidance of all that could possibly be looking like vulnerability. In this scenario, closeness is to be avoided at all costs, even though closeness is our most suppressed and desperate need. Now here's another thing. We can't dismiss our own needs, feelings, and desires without doing the same to other people around us. We don't want to see or feel or deeply understand someone because this brings up these deep feelings of unfairness that we have to accept and tolerate and take care of someone else, but they will not give us the same treatment in return, just like in childhood. For this reason, the people involved with those who fear intimacy feel as if they're not seen, not heard, not felt, and not understood. They will feel like the person who fears intimacy doesn't see the obvious ways that they hurt other people, or do anything to remedy the situation. The person who fears intimacy seems to be completely void of empathy, because the truth is, he or she is not connected to the other person enough to perceive their feelings or thoughts or needs or desires, enough to even have empathy. So if you're struggling with the fear of intimacy, this is how to approach that fear. Step 1, get in touch with your emotions. Your emotions are like a compass. They are always telling you about your internal truth, your personal truth. So if you're thinking a thought, your mirror will always be the way you feel. They're going to tell you exactly where you stand at all moments of the day. It doesn't really matter whether the feelings are reflective of a thought or perception that's accurate or not. The feelings themselves are always an accurate reflection. Your emotions are the doorway to figuring out what you want in life, what direction to go, what's keeping you from that. Not being in touch with your emotions in life is similar to being stranded in a foreign wilderness with no compass. For this reason, I want you to watch my video titled How to Feel, Learn How to Start Feeling. Learning to feel after having deliberately cut off from your emotions begins with a conscious choice and decision that you want to feel. Now, I know that some of you who are intimacy phobes may consciously be like, yeah, I want to feel. I'm good with that. Let's learn that. No, but by far, the majority of you is like, no, that's dangerous. So you got to be aware of that aspect of you that doesn't want to. Because, like I said, learning how to feel begins with the decision that you want to. From that point, you start slowly. And once you learn what feelings you're having, you then practice communicating that to the other people in your life. Consider this a process of re-owning your personal truth. 2, you got to discover the part, one or multiple, that are actually fueling this issue, the ones that want nothing to do with connection, the most avoidant aspects of you, the ones that are like, nope, not getting close. Close is a no. No. Those types of parts, you have to find them. Once you find them, you've got to feel into them, see into them, listen to them, understand them, and meet the needs that they have. Basically, what you're doing is giving that part that fears intimacy, the intimacy that it never got from the people who created its issue in the first place. From this space, that part of you will tell you what you need to do and what it needs other people to do in order for it to allow for intimacy in its life. Now, to understand how to do this process or to find parts within yourself, I want you to watch my video titled Fragmentation, the Worldwide Disease. 3, make a dedicated practice of noticing social cues. I know that sounds like a funny thing, but here's what happens. When you don't believe that any of you is going to be accepted or tolerated, so you basically close yourself off in a little bubble, what happens is that people who fear intimacy live in a kind of self-centered sphere. It does you no good to notice all of the things that are going on with other people. You can't have that connection. It's dangerous anyways. And obviously, this creates a kind of negative pattern. You decided you could never be acknowledged by them or be supported by them, so you tuned other people out. This means you either ignore or dismiss subtle and not so subtle cues from other people all the time. Now, the reason this is a vicious cycle is because it makes the world and intimacy more dangerous. When you don't pick up on social cues in other people, and so you don't adjust your behavior according to those social cues, what happens is that you become dangerous to other people. So let's pretend that somebody has just barely lost somebody that they love. If you're not really attuned to the fact that they are giving you all kinds of social cues that they're in a state of grief because you're walled off, you may be the person who walks in and says, "Hey, what's so gloomy? It's a great day outside. Why are you sitting like that? I don't like it actually when you sit like that. You're starting to upset me. Why are you always trying to drag me down?" See, so your own behavior didn't adjust according to the social cues that you perceived. So what does this create? It creates a scenario where everyone's going to look at you like, that is a fucking asshole right there. And what do people do when they make that decision? If you're the bad guy, now you're the one that's the threat. That means all of the aspects of them that want to protect themselves against you come up. That means they're not going to take your best interests at heart because it's obvious you don't take theirs to interest. So basically, the world gets even more unsafe for you, which actually fuels your belief that's causing you to withdraw and not be intimate in the first place. The more you notice social cues so as to respond to them in a way that makes people feel safe near you, the more they will want to take care of your needs and personal truth and best interests. So throughout your day and every social interaction, practice reading their emotions and checking in with them about whether what you are perceiving is accurate or not. 4, you've got to notice your disconnection with people when it occurs. Notice that feeling like you're just a brain that doesn't even have a heart. It's almost like a disconnected head that's wandering all over the place. You're not even really somebody that has a body at that point. That sensation, which you usually don't notice, is an indication that you have disconnected. Another really good indication is if you've disconnected from an aspect of yourself, other people in your exterior life will become the carrier of that aspect. So here's what I mean. Let's say that you felt rage in your body and you disconnected from that. And so you're now this sort of floating kind of a brain at this moment in disconnection. Likelihood is the other person is going to now amplify because they're the carrier of your rage. So when you see people in your life screaming at you, and this is the kind of movement they're doing, probably a good indication you're disconnected at this moment. To elaborate on this, notice how other people are responding to you with anxiety, neediness, and rage. Rage is a cover emotion for powerlessness. This is happening because you are disconnecting from your own feelings of anxiety, neediness, and fear in this moment. You feel that by disconnecting from the other person, who you perceive to be causing those feelings, you can escape from the feelings themselves. Obviously, this makes them become the carrier of your suppressed and disowned emotions in that moment, and they will become even more anxious because you are making them responsible for both their own anxiety and yours. So when this happens, choose to drop into and feel the feelings of anxiety, powerlessness, and neediness that you're trying to avoid. You are terrified of strong negative emotions. Forcing yourself not to distract yourself or leave the physical vicinity of the other person, and choosing instead to drop inside yourself and let yourself feel these feelings underneath the disconnection is the only real way not to create a vicious spiral of lost connection with the person who you genuinely want to be connected with. 5, with a willing partner who actually does want to do what mom and dad never wanted to do, which is be with you when you dropped into the truth of yourself. You can have a rehabilitative experience where when you drop into the way you feel the anxiety, the neediness, the powerlessness, and even the rage, that person can sit and be there with you without needing you to change. They can receive your truth. That's genuine intimacy. So isn't that interesting? You can even learn intimacy by somebody being present with your avoidance of intimacy. 6, you gotta commit to a path of authenticity. If you have a fear of intimacy, you have not been authentic. You have lived your life in the exact opposite state. Trying to be authentic around your parents, which is an intimate thing because you're trusting someone with the truth of you, had consequences. But notice the pain involved in living an inauthentic life. Anais Nin once wrote, "And the day came when the pain it took to stay tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to bloom." The question for yourself is, are you tired yet? Is it too painful yet? Has that day arrived? If it has, I am begging you to watch my video titled How to Be Authentic. 7, your fear of intimacy has made it so you prioritize things that don't require you to go towards those emotions that intimacy stirs. This means that you've got to check your actual priorities. You may be saying, my priority is my relationship. Sorry. Most of your energy is going into hobbies or obsessive work. Anything where you feel confidence and don't have to feel vulnerability, don't have to feel need of other people. That's where your attention's actually going. And this is the thing. If you're going to develop a genuine connection in a relationship, that actually does have to be your priority. You can fit these other things into your life. By all means, people do it all the time. But you got to know where your priorities lie, because I'm going to guarantee you that if you get into a pinch and you are with a partner and you say, my priority is work, you're losing that relationship. A life of achievement is absolutely useless if you have no one to share that life with. What you really want and need is connection, closeness, to be truly seen, felt, heard, and understood by someone. You need to see that you can be loved for who you are, not for what you can do or for what you can achieve or accomplish. 8, notice how positive feelings trigger you almost more than negative feelings. This means when you do have that closeness, or when it may look like you actually have a sense of togetherness, oh, are you ever going to get triggered? The reason you're going to get triggered is it conflicts with your entire reality. It conflicts with what you think is possible and what you know about yourself. You're going to feel suspicion and distrust for the other person, and this is going to unwittingly trigger that deep-seated feeling that you developed in childhood that who you were was not to be tolerated. As a result, it arouses all of that pain. And to get away from the pain of that trigger, you will disconnect from those feelings and create problems or tension in the relationship you're in, or push the person who is loving you away. If you have this pattern of fear of intimacy, guaranteed the people in your life feel super freaking confused by you, because it seems like everything's going wonderful, we're so close, and suddenly there's a problem. Suddenly I'm getting pushed away, and then when I go away, suddenly you're chasing me. It's that classic push and pull relationship. 9, face your shame. Shame is the root of a fear of intimacy. Why? Because who you are are those internal feelings, thoughts, desires, needs. That's who makes up who you are in this life. And that was not to be tolerated. So if you learn that, what else are you to decide other than who you are is bad, wrong, and is not to be tolerated? That's shame. That's what it is. That's the definition. For this reason, I want you to watch my videos titled How to Overcome Shame and The #1 Relationship Obstacle and How to Dissolve It. 10. Be aware of when you are pushing people away. I want you to play a game with the people in your life. Give them full permission when they feel like you're doing a push away, either through an action or something you're saying or doing or not doing. Let them voice it to you. You have to become aware of when you're doing this. I'm sorry to break it to you, but if you have a fear of intimacy, it's impossible for you to be a super self-aware person because you had to push away your feelings, your thoughts, your desires, your motives, any awareness about you, the truth of you. So you're going to have to accept that and realize that you're going to be continuously learning about yourself and re-owning your truth. And part of that is seeing what you're actually doing to people. Self-awareness is the key to recognizing your behaviors before they are acted out and damage your relationships. 11. If you fear intimacy, but you want a good relationship, you're going to have to commit to becoming an expert on the other person. The person you're in a relationship with, they'll usually be the first to start this with. And this is going to be the case eventually with all the people in your life. But just pick one person. You need to become an expert on this person. You've got to understand them, look into them, really want to know their internal world to such an incredible degree that you get them completely. That has to be a risk you're willing to take and a commitment you're ready to make. 12, I want you to make a consistent practice of the connection process. In the connection process, you are going to be actually journeying into somebody else's internal world, and they are going to be journeying into your internal world. I teach you how to do this in my video that's titled How to Connect with Someone. 13, discover your needs, and even though it's scary, you gotta express your needs to other people. Even if you can't do this directly, you've got to take your needs and you've got to put them in the center of the relationship so that people can choose when and how to meet them. If you can't express your needs directly, I have a solution for you. You can write them down on a piece of paper, put them somewhere in the house, or send them to your friends so that they can receive those needs and choose to meet those needs. What happens when we don't trust that anyone's going to meet our needs because we've already learned that our needs will not be tolerated is that we now have only two options. Either we go completely without our needs, in which case we starve, most of us can't do that, or we manipulate to get our needs met. So instead of expecting a person to meet those needs or manipulating them to meet those needs, surrender to the vulnerability of letting other people meet those needs because they want to and because your happiness is their happiness. When you were young, your needs were not met with warmth and consistency. Your needs were either not met at all or were met with inconsistency, anger, and resentment, and often with strings attached. You learned not to depend on others to meet your needs, but to swing between manipulating them to meet your needs and meeting them all by yourself. You need to let yourself have the experience of having your needs met by others because it brings them pleasure to do so. 14, accept that you are starting from scratch. You have no freaking idea how to have a good, intimate, close, committed relationship with another person. And that's okay. But what I want you to do is literally wipe the slate clean. Just admit, I have no freaking clue how to do this. And from scratch, start learning one by one how to be close, how to be committed, how to stay with this person so that we're connected and not pull away. Become okay with throwing your old paradigms away. If you're an intimacy phobe, chances are your concept about how to keep a relationship together should be thrown away. 15, become comfortable with vulnerability. The foundation of a good relationship is vulnerability. The more tolerant of vulnerability that you are and the discomfort it causes, the closer that you will be able to be with people and the less you will push them away. Vulnerability is not weakness. Instead, it involves great courage to be willing to be vulnerable. If you can choose to acknowledge and share your vulnerability in a situation instead of cope by pushing people away, creating conflict or disconnecting, you can remain connected to the person you want to be connected with. You can bring resolve to what is real. You can meet needs that are real. You can make relationships feel good again. 16. What you've got to recognize is that you meet other people in the same way that your parents met you. You've got to recognize that you're doing this. What that means is you are meeting other people's feelings, thoughts, desires, and needs, including the need for you, with intolerance. If you can remember how painful that was, you can recognize what you needed instead and provide that experience to other people. I want you to imagine, and this will be easier if you have an issue with connecting with people, that every time you provide for the other person, not only tolerance, but acceptance and love for whatever they're presenting to you, it is the same as doing that for your inner child, the one that was so hurt by that in the first place. So it's not possible for you to provide intimacy for other people without also rehabilitating the aspect of you that was so hurt by not having it. Intimacy is an act of courage, and I want to remind you that courage implies fear. You can't have courage in the absence of fear. So you're going to be scared. You're going to be scared to high heaven when you have a fear of intimacy and you're trying to develop it. You got to be okay with the fact that you're going to feel fear. Don't try to escape from the fear. Bring that into the damn relationship with you. The good news is, if you have found a partner that really wants to be intimate and connected with you, when you bring yourself into the center of that relationship, your truths, your feelings, your desires, your need for them, and they're allowed to do the same to you, you have found resolution for what you suffered from as a child. You will have a genuine experience of somebody really wanting you and wanting you to feel good because it brings them pleasure to see you feel good. Have a good week.